Jean-Jacques Ekindi kicked out of the National Assembly, and also the emergence of Joshua Osei of the Social Democratic Front and Subla Zah of the MRC of Professor Maurice Kamto. And also in this newscast, we talk about the election of mayors which took place yesterday across the country, where in the Douala 5 municipality, the CPDM fails to include an opposition amongst the executives. Still here in the city of Douala, a fatal road accident claimed a life of a man. That was this afternoon. These are headlines, details and more just in a moment. Good evening to viewers. Welcome to join us in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television. Like we announced in the headlines, the Supreme Court sitting in for the Constitutional Council has published the official results of the September 30 legislative elections that took place across the country. And as was the case with the municipal elections, the governing CPDM is occupying most of the parliamentary seats. We are talking about 148 out of the 180 seats in the National Assembly. And so far, we are seeing a new political configuration. That was the interest of our Yaoundé-based correspondent Roland Akon.
The results of the September 30 legislative election show there are 7 political parties in this 9th legislature compared to 5 in the 8th legislature. The CPDM party witnesses a fall from 153 MPs in the 8th legislature to 148 MPs in the 9th legislature. However, it has the majority of the 180 seats in Cameroon's lower house of assembly, and the only party with MPs from all the 10 regions of Cameroon. The SDF, with 18 seats in the 9th legislature, witnesses an increase in number of seats from 15 in the 8th legislature. It remains Cameroon's leading opposition party, the only party with the CPDM to form a parliamentary group. The NUDP of Magari Bello Buba drops from 6 seats in the 8th legislature to 5 seats in this 9th legislature. The CDU of Adamu Ndamjoya maintains its 4 seats, as in the 8th legislature, all seats gathered from the Noon constituency. The UPC party bounces back with 3 seats snatched from the CPDM in the Nyong and Kele constituency. They were last seen in the hemicycle in 2002 during the 7th legislature. The MDR of Dakole Daisala has 1 seat. They are back in the National Assembly after a decade of absence. The Cameroon Renaissance Movement of Professor Maurice Kamto, with 1 seat in the hemicycle, is the newcomer at the National Assembly. A session as of right takes place October 29 before the MPs begin parliamentary business, with an opening session in November.
And of course, the new political configuration in the country, the emergence of the UPC and MRC of Professor Maurice Kamto. And just to note that the PAP of Ayapola Bine so far kicked out of the National Assembly, and also the MP of Jean-Jacques Ekindi. And just shortly after the proclamation of the results by the Supreme Court, which is sitting in for the Constitutional Council, some newly elected MPs, members of Parliament, expressed their joy and also presented their plan of action. They were speaking to Roland Akon.
Yes, Liz, the Supreme Court, as you are aware, have just proclaimed the results, declaring me the winner of the 30th September legislative elections.
Which constituency?
Kuma Urban constituency.
Which party?
The SDF. Where my plans are lofty, especially as I'm going under the banner of the SDF. During the elections, the SDF came out with a program which I know we shall try to implement in Parliament. Good governance, fight against corruption, poverty alleviation, women's rights, I name it all.
Oh, I can tell you that I'm happy to see that UPC is back to the Parliament, because what is important here is not my own position. It is the situation that we were facing before. The fact that UPC was not in the Parliament was a situation that nobody would have accepted. But now that we found a way to bring UPC back to the Parliament, we are very happy to see that Cameroonians accepted to have UPC in the Parliament.
Those are the views of some members of parliament shortly after the proclamation of the results by the Supreme Court sitting in for the Constitutional Council. Speaking to Yaoundé-based correspondent Roland Akong here in the economic capital Douala, let's talk about the elections of mayors. Francois Foning has been re-elected mayor of the Douala 5 municipality. As we announced in the headline, she shall be assisted by 6 deputy mayors or councillors, and all of them are from the governing CPDM political party. For Hansin Chanji tells us more in the following report.
It was an all-CPDM affair as far as the elections of executives into the Douala 5 Council was concerned. The elections that began 10 hours behind schedule at 3 a.m. Thursday was dominated by the party in power. Francois Foning will pilot the affairs of the council for the next 5 years as mayor. Her re-election was greeted with thunderous applause. 6 other deputy mayors, all from the CPDM party, will assist her henceforth. The opposition party, who numbered 17, went home with practically nothing. The SDF party, the MRC, PADEC, and UPC were only compensated after due negotiations. A post of Grand Councillor that went to Adolphe Papindumbe of the UPC party, who will join 4 others to represent the Douala 5 Council at the Douala City Council. The opposition parties failed to come to a conclusion on who will lead them, leaving the CPDM party with no choice than to exploit their weakness. Elimbi Lobe of the SDF party calls it a total failure by the opposition and lack of cohesion. The SDO Fawuri says
the application of council executive mixed with other parties has come into effect. Democracy is now at the base and people live it now without any fear or any favor.
Observers say the presence of 6 deputy mayors, all from the CPDM party, raises the question of the non-respect of Article 60 of 2004, which prescribes a post of deputy for other political parties represented in the council.
The Article 60 of the July 2004 law that was of course respected in the Douala 4, Douala 3, Douala 2 and Douala 1 municipalities, all here in the littoral region. There was tension, however, at the Douala 4 municipality yesterday when a group of protesters suddenly rose against the elections of Frederick Elange as mayor. Ito Rosalie Fleur, who was there, reports that the elections finally unfolded but under tight security. Her report.
More than 80 youths stormed the Douala 4 Council. They got agitated as the elections delayed. They were in 2 camps. The one camp supported Kum Elonge, while the other supported Sole Ebonge. Both camps could not bear the presence of one another. They finally picked holes. Security forces were heavily deployed to the council. A security belt was mounted around the entrances. The demonstrators were pushed out right across the road, but they remained very agitated. The Vuri prefect Nasiri Beya was called up urgently, suspending elections in Douala 1. He concerted with both parties. Calm was restored. A single candidature was presented by Kum Elonge. 28 councillors voted for him. 11 councillors threw empty envelopes into the box. 1 abstention was recorded. 3 deputies were voted belonging to the CPDM party, and the 4th place was occupied by the SDF. The first Grand Councillor in Douala 4 is Sole Ebonge, who had wanted to be mayor, a post given him by recognition and compensation. Then Takwe Ibrahim, Mudoki Pierre, Mbappe Ekolo, and Dr. Sole Jeremy were all made Grand Councillors. The new Douala 4 executive was established.
It's all over at the level of the Douala 4 Council. The CPDM has finally taken its grand debut here in the Douala 4 Council, and the CPDM decided to respond to the call given by Douala 3 by giving a post of assistance to the SDF party.
Tension in the Douala 4 municipality, and of course a similar situation in the Mbonge Council, that is in the Meme division of the southwest region of Cameroon. Supporters of the SDF up to yesterday denied the victory of the governing CPDM over the Mbonge Council. They grounded the elections for hours and were only dispersed by forces of law and order. Derek Jato witnessed what happened in the Mbonge Council and now tells us more in the following report.
The senior divisional officer for Meme Division, Mr. Aman David, is in Mbonge subdivision to coordinate the election of the mayor and the deputies as stipulated by the law.
Pursuant to the provisions of Section 60 of Law Number 2004/018 of 22nd July 2004.
Just about to start, the SDF list leader of the September 30th municipal polls tabled what he called a worry.
Your Excellency, as we are seated here, we don't have a copy of the results.
When the result of the poll was read again, CBDM having 33 seats, SDF 10 seats, and ANDP 2 seats, about to elect the mayor democratically because of the absence of a consensus. These Mbonge youth said SDF won on September 30th and there will be no election based on what they term fake result. They are forcing their way into the conference hall where the election is going on. Pushed back by security forces, they started shooting stones in a hall where the senior divisional officer for Meme, his entourage, and the councillors for SDF, CBDM, and ANDP were present. The security forces answered the action and opened tear gas. At a moment, even all were affected, carrying the election under a tense atmosphere. Mr. Ekon Williams from the CBDM was elected the mayor of the Cameroon largest subdivision, Mbonge. But the saga was far from being over. In the night, barricades were mounted on the road to block the senior divisional officer's convoy. The convoy finally drove out of the subdivision.
It was, of course, a long and tiring day in the Mbonge Council in the Meme division of Cameroon. The mayor of the Edea One has pledged to ensure that the challenges of the people are tackled. Yetem Bote of the UPC was speaking shortly after he was elected mayor of the said municipality. Ambe Fokwa tells us more in the following report.
The UPC, Union of the Populations of Cameroon Party, secured victory in the Edea 1 subdivision in the September 30th municipal elections. Control of the council constituency allowed Yet Mbote to be elected mayor of the Edea 1 council on October 16. Supporters of the party converged on the courtyard of the council to await the internal election results, as well as congratulate the members of other parties who would be installed as assistant mayors and councillors of the Edea 1 council. Despite the jubilation that followed the election of Mayor Mbote, the Edea 1 subdivision suffers from poor roads and deficient aqueduct systems, which will need to fall under the council's priority areas of development. The newly elected mayor of the UPC, aware of the task facing him, stated his priorities would follow the desires of the people.
Mon mandat, c'est d'abord d'associer toutes les populations d'aider à la gestion de la mairie.
My priority is to dialogue with the population to understand what issues to tackle. I said we will establish local committees at the council that will compile the problems of the people so we can find solutions together.
C'est ce que j'avais appelé à l'époque comités locaux communaux.
Mayor Mbote's first assistant, Mr. Moulin, also took the stand holding the population in priority. It is not the victory of only the party. It is the victory of Edea. Edea 1 has won. The declaration of the mayor's election results also saw the selection of CPDM militant Madame Njok placed in the position of second assistant. At the close of the ceremony, militants and supporters of the UPC paraded through the streets of the Edea 1 subdivision, chanting change, optimistic about the future development of the district.
Rehabilitation of road, lack of potable water, and security are some of the tasks ahead of newly elected mayors in the Douala 3 and 4 municipalities. Locals in the area are calling for total change. They add their views to Jack Ekwekinge. We shall surely be coming back to some of the difficulties of inhabitants of the Douala 3 and 4 municipalities in our subsequent editions. As we announced in the headlines, a man has died in a fatal road accident that occurred this afternoon at the village neighborhood in the city of Douala. Buti Moise, who is an agent of the Douala Autonomous Port, was, according to witnesses, riding a motorbike at a breakneck speed. He later lost control of the bike and got beneath a stationed truck. He died on the spot, and his mortal remains were ferried to the Lakantini Hospital mortuary. In the southwest region of the country, let's talk about the nightmare of getting a house for rent by students of the University of Buea. They say they can barely afford a high price, or they can barely afford the high prices imposed on them by landlords. Questions are equally being raised on when the announced 2,500 rooms by the government would soon go operational. Derek Jato sampled the views of some students as well as landlords in the city of Buea and compiled the following report.
As the University of Buea prepares for the 2013-2014 school year, accommodation difficulties remains a problem to students.
I'm a student of the University of Buea studying electrical engineering. There are some difficulties that all students face concerning accommodation. It's not really easy on our side. The house rents are too expensive.
Owners of hostels say the high prices is to meet up with the cost of construction.
The bag of cement is 5,000 francs. How much do you expect I can construct a whole building? You can't ask the rent. That's why you see the rents are skyrocketing.
Launching the national invitation to tenders to clear the site and fence the 5 hectares of land south and the 1.7 hectares of land north of the University of Buea for the construction of 2,500 bed university student halls of residence. The students say this initiative will bring a lasting solution when realized.
Constructing the student hostel also is going to help us in many ways.
Mr. Donald Achidi is the Director General of the Cameroon University Housing Corporation.
We came here to begin the preparatory works. The site preparation for the construction phase.
Students and parents wait expectantly to have this structure in UB.
3 million Cameroonians do not have food to eat. The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development was speaking to the press that was in a conference in Yaoundé Centre region of the country on the sidelines of the World Food Day that was commemorated yesterday. A Yaoundé-based correspondent Roland Akong compiled the following report.
Cameroon's Minister of Agriculture, briefing the press on World Food Day, disclosed that over 3 million Cameroonians lack food.
The number of people still suffering from hunger stand at 842 million worldwide. In Cameroon, about 3 million of people are still exposed to the scourge.
Esimi Menye attributes hunger to few hands farming to feed many mouths.
Il y a peu de mains qui travaillent et beaucoup de bouches qui mangent.
He also laid the blame of hunger in Cameroon on natural disasters.
Some parts of our country remain vulnerable to food insecurity as a result of frequent occurrence of drought and floods.
Cameroon, with vast agri-fertile zones, has the potential for food enough. Critics believe that if 3 million Cameroonians lack food, it is because farm aids, like the famous Indian tractors, don't reach farmers. Agri subventions and farm inputs are hard to get. Foodstuffs rot away as a result of no farm-to-market roads and the lack of storage facilities, as well as inadequate transformation mechanisms at farm gates. A farmers' bank, President Biya, promised since 2010 in Ebolova, is yet to go fully operational, and incentives to make farming attractive to young Cameroonians is not enough. Healthy people depend on healthy food system is the theme of this year's World Food Day.
Meantime, the poor quality of food consumed in homes here in the economic capital Douala has partly been blamed on food scarcity and high prices. Pamela Nduko, on the sidelines of the World Food Day, visited some households here in the economic capital Douala and further tells us about their day-to-day difficulties.
The quality of food eaten by some families in Douala is gradually dropping, not only because of the scarcity of foodstuffs in the local market, but also as a result of the price increase. Mama Josephine from the Gachu family told us her menu for the day and how expensive it will cost. My menu for today is cassava, unripe plantain, and ndole soup. It's going to be a little costly because in the market you have 5 pieces of plantain for 500 francs. There is no money, but when you go to the market, things are so expensive. Some inhabitants say the high cost of foodstuffs in our market today is as a result of the huge number of foreigners of neighboring countries who flock into the country to buy foodstuffs in large quantities at a high cost price, thus causing scarcity and increase in prices of other foodstuffs. Some say life is becoming very difficult in Cameroon and at times difficult to afford a square meal. The day I have 1,000 francs, I cook. The day I have 500 francs, I still manage. I have 5 persons to feed. At times, I don't even cook because things are hard. Sometimes we even eat bread and sleep. Worthy of note is that the scarcity of food and increase in the price of foodstuffs in our local markets today affects the quantity and quality of food consumed by some families in Douala.
From Cameroon, we take you right away to to news out of the country. The deportation of a young girl from the European state of Kosafa, who was taken into custody by police while on a school excursion, has outraged French politicians. French Interior Minister has called for investigation into the incident. Let's have the details of that report with Franz Venkat.
Leonardo was on a bus with her classmates on her way back from a school trip when she received a phone call. French authorities were looking for her. The bus drove her to this car park where police officers were waiting.
It broke my heart to leave my friends, my school, everyone. I was ashamed. The police came and my friends asked me what I'd done, if I had stolen anything.
Leonardo, her parents and their 5 other children were deported to their home country, Kosovo. The Roma family had been living in France illegally for 5 years. According to the French Interior Ministry, the expulsion was legal.
When you haven't been given asylum and you don't have any reason to stay on our territory, the law has to be applied.
This comes just a month after Manuel Valls said that 20,000 Roma living in France had no intention of integrating and should be expelled. Leonardo's case is the latest in a string of deportations to spark outrage across the political spectrum.
Deportation orders do not allow authorities to detain children at school. If a mistake was made, the expulsion order will be annulled and this family will come back to France so that its case will be examined.
An internal investigation is currently underway. Its findings are expected by the end of the week.
Still out of Cameroon, the U.S. Senate and Republican-controlled House of Representatives has voted in favor of a bipartisan deal to end the government shutdown. The deal was reached yesterday, allowing the debt allowance for the government to be extended to February 7th, 2014. Let's have the details once again with Franz Venkat.
Reported as is passed.
The U.S. Congress has approved legislation to raise the debt limit, ending 16 days of a partial government shutdown. It began with a vote in the Senate, where it passed by a wide margin of 81 votes to 18.
Republicans and Democrats in Congress have come together around an agreement that will reopen our government and remove the threat of default from our economy.
With the Treasury Department warning that it was about to run out of money to pay essential bills, the vote allows hundreds of thousands of federal workers to head back to work on Thursday. The plan will fund the government until January 15th and raise the debt limit until February 7th. It marks a defeat for Republicans who had demanded that Obama's signature health care reforms be delayed by a year in return for the passage of a budget bill. Obama refused to negotiate.
This is a terrible deal. This deal embodies everything about the Washington establishment that frustrates the American people. This deal kicks the can down the road. It allows yet more debt, more deficits, more spending.
The deal will put an end to Washington's most serious budget crisis in 17 years. But with more negotiations due in February, the budget battles are far from over.
From that story from the U.S., we come to the end of this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television. But before we go, in this edition of the 6 p.m. news, we talked about the governing CPDM in control of the 148 out of the 180 parliamentary seats in the country. We also talked about the rise and fall of some opposition political parties in the country. The MP of Jean-Jacques Ekindi kicked out of the National Assembly, and of course the emergence of the Social Democratic Front, precisely Joshua Osei and also Zub Lazar of the MRC of Professor Maurice Kamto. And also we talked about the elections of mayors in the Douala 5 municipality. The CPDM fails to include the opposition amongst the executives, and also a man that has been confirmed dead following a fatal road accident that occurred this afternoon in the city of Douala. We thank you so much, viewers, for having joined us. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Good evening to you once again.